This video is brought to you by Squarespace. All of my photography trips in the past couple of years have been one and done in the sense that I've always been going to a new place on the next trip. But this is the first trip where that wasn't the case, and I feel like that made this a bit more of an interesting travel experience for myself, and also made it a little bit more special. So while it had been 2 years since the last time I was in Lisbon, it strangely felt like I had just been there. Going into this trip, I didn't expect a whole lot to be different about Lisbon. And it was kind of weird because I'm so used to experiencing everything as a new place. And yeah, that's what made this so unique for myself, because it was like this weird feeling of deja vu the entire time. I don't know if any of you can relate to this feeling, but sometimes when you travel and you go somewhere and you come back home, you have to quickly readjust to reality, back to your daily routine and, work, school, whatever you do normally back home. It can easily feel like the trip itself that you just were on kind of like never happened in a way. And so it kind of makes these experiences going to different parts of the world and coming back home, it makes them feel like, I don't know, kind of like dreams in a way. Just little blips, different places that you went to, but they're kind of like one and done, right? Anyway, it can feel like that place that you went to doesn't really exist in your life. To an extent, that's true, right? You don't live there. And maybe you were just there for 2 weeks like I was when I last was in Lisbon. It was just a 2-week trip. Coming back a second time, I didn't expect to have this existential realization, but it was a funny, interesting feeling to re-experience it and be like, oh wait, this is a real place. It's a place where people do live their daily routines, go to work, go to school and whatnot. I don't know, I kind of found that somewhat beautiful, I guess. And it was a unique experience that, I haven't really experienced since I've started traveling a lot for photography. And I wanted to share it and maybe see if any of you can relate to this. Or I'm just completely crazy. Probably more likely that. On my last trip to Lisbon, I mainly shot with the Ricoh GR3X, and that made it a very interesting experience because I was very limited in terms of the gear I had to work with, and the focal length obviously being 40mm. I'm so glad I didn't do that on this trip, because I felt like I was able to get a lot more creative in the kind of images I wanted to make. And yeah, maybe I brought too much camera gear yet again, but I'm glad that I was able to play with different focal lengths this time around. And as a result, it kind of led me to seeing Lisbon completely differently and take photos that were very different than the last time I came here. On a similar note, I feel like I've grown as a photographer in the last 2 years. And so the way I photograph and see things on the street are a little bit different. Not too drastically different, but different enough where I felt like walking around Lisbon a second time, I had fresh eyes, completely fresh eyes, where I could create just as easily as if it was the first time I was visiting Lisbon. So that was another interesting observation as well. I remember the last time that I was in Lisbon, there were so many tourists, and yeah, that hasn't changed. If anything, there's more tourists. I think the conversation of like tourist versus traveler definitely comes up whenever I like talk about, tourists, because I personally, I don't look at myself as a tourist. I see myself more as like a traveler, right? But in the eyes of locals, I'm a tourist, right? And I can't change that. I'm always going to be a tourist in the eyes of locals. So on this trip, there were more encounters, negative encounters where, myself, Mate, and Austin, we were getting yelled at for taking photos. And I guess it's also the fact that, it's three of us too, so we stick out more like a sore thumb. And it's easy for us to kind of get upset in the moment and feel like, we're not doing anything wrong. We're not being intrusive to anyone's physical space. We're not getting so up close to people, right, and taking photos. In all the instances, we're just photographing like a greater, scene, and those were the instances where we did get kind of like yelled at. And so it's easy to get mad, right, or to feel the need to defend yourself, but I do understand like why someone might be upset, right? It's more of an indication that they had a bad experience in the past where a photographer wasn't respectful and wasn't kind and didn't respect their privacy or space. That's leading them to act out negatively towards us, right? So it was kind of like a reminder for myself to not be that photographer, to not be that person who leads someone to acting out that way towards the next person who visits Lisbon and has a camera. I'm not sure yet which city will be my second revisit. It's either between London, Istanbul, or Tokyo. I think those are three cities that I'd get on a flight tomorrow if I could. So we'll see. Could be London. I could go to London before the end of the year. Not sure yet. We'll see. I'd like to though. Anyway, appreciate you guys listening in and hearing me yap about my second time going to Lisbon. All right, guys, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye. Last but not least, a big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Now, I don't want to be that guy to remind you, but your website probably needs to be updated. Heck, if you don't even have a website, probably now is a good time to get started. I've been using Squarespace for my own business for a long time, way before I even started a YouTube channel, and they make it really easy to get started with their customizable templates. Squarespace did a recent collaboration with Magnum Photos, and you can see all these Magnum photographer-inspired website designs that you can choose from. And if you're a business owner or a self-employed content creator like yours truly, running your online store and business through Squarespace is incredibly intuitive and practical. I'm able to keep everything that I do regarding my portfolio, my preset store, blog, contact form, and even invoices all within my Squarespace website. If you're interested in getting started with Squarespace, you can get a free trial by visiting squarespace.com/Faisal and use the code Faisal to get 10% off your first purchase.